say that Denver rushed into allowing marijuana smoking in businesses. I mean, voters approved it more than a year ago, and today the city told us they took their first application for such a business. Brandon Ritterman is the man who covers politics and pot for us. Good combination. Brandon, these places would not be allowed to sell you marijuana. They're BYOP.
BYOP, you got that right. But one of the owners of this very first place also owns a pot shop right next door to it. And in a pun fit for this program, Kyle, they plan to call it the Coffee Joint. And if the city will allow it, they actually plan to have an inside door between the coffee shop and the lobby of that pot shop right next door. So the idea is it could be kind of a one-stop shopping experience for people to be able to buy some marijuana and then use it in the coffee shop area. They won't get a lot of foot traffic here. This is in a warehouse district just off a frontage road to I-25. Kind of an industrial area, hard to find. The neighborhood group that sponsored them says they would not expect anyone to end up here who wasn't looking for it. They're still months away from being able to get the permit to allow pot use on site, but the owners plan to open in a couple of weeks as just a plain old coffee shop.
Probably main consumption room going to be back there. That's where we're going to have a few tables and a coffee and everything.
This will be the event room.
They were working on the place when we stopped by and shared their vision, which is part coffee shop, part head shop, and part event center. They envision charging you about $5 to get in. That'll include your coffee, and it'll allow you to grab a seat and have some marijuana there with other people. But even though they've got joint in their name, no smoking inside. It'll be vaping, concentrated marijuana, or eating edibles only because they don't have an outside patio to comply with the same laws that ban tobacco smoke inside in most businesses. And they plan to take some of the same precautions that bar owners generally do.
Employees, first of all, will be trained to spot over-intoxication, at which point the patron will be asked to politely leave and possibly given some options to get home.
And the next stop here, Kyle, the next step rather, will be a lot like trying to open a bar. They're actually going to have the same type of hearing that you have when you apply for a liquor license or a license to open a marijuana store. Anyone from the public can show up to either support or object to that. So you can imagine that could be fun. The city says they plan to have that hearing sometime in the next maybe 2 to 3 months.
They're not going to relitigate the whole stinking marijuana debate over this one location, are they?
I've been in this type of hearing for a marijuana store, and the hearing officer made it very clear in that hearing this is not the place to debate whether you like marijuana legalization or not. Absolutely not. It's on the merits of this particular place and how it fits into the neighborhood.
In a word, how fast could they open?
How fast could they open? Several months.
That was many words, but that's fine. Thank you, Brandon. Denver's neighborhoods. Some of them are so trendy you can even buy their name on a holiday gift. Show your hood pride. You can buy a map, a T-shirt, even a cutting board that says Stapleton on it. You know, that's the name of the old neighborhood, the name of the old mayor, the guy with KKK ties. 2 community forums are being held to discuss whether there is a future in the Stapleton name, being held in a building where the Stapleton name sits over the entrance. One of those meetings is happening now. Here on Next, we've already highlighted former Denver Mayor Ben Stapleton's link to the KKK back in the 1920s. Denver decided to name an airport after him anyway, and nearly 23 years after that airport went away, the neighborhood still bears his name, and there are activist groups that are continuing to push for it to come off of street signs and schools and businesses.
I don't know that people automatically drop the name if you change the name, but I do think the evolution of the change is what creates new language, so I think it just takes time. A meeting like this is not necessary the day that we can officially say we have eradicated racism in the United States of America.
The developer told us that they have nearly a dozen names that they use for sub-neighborhoods within Stapleton, but that's going to make limited use of Stapleton for marketing. The councilman who represents that area, Chris Herndon, told us that council has power over parks and street names, but it is not within council's purview to rename an entire neighborhood. Denver police sparked an interesting conversation about local journalism on Twitter this weekend, a conversation that continues here in a moment with an apology from DPD. First, the tweet. They wrote, "Denver's breaking news with no pop-ups or advertisers of any kind. Follow Denver police for the fastest, most accurate news about Denver." I was not the only local journalist that questioned whether a government agency was trying to steer people away from a free press and toward its official government line. I asked DPD Deputy Chief Matt Murray today if he thinks that the police department is in the business of journalism.
We can't really be journalists. You can't have people with badges and guns coming up to people's house and doing interviews and the kinds of things that a free press does. That's not the role of the police department. But it is a new era, and information is now easily distributable and very quickly. And social media has obviously changed the game from the president on down to Channel 9. So we're trying to navigate that just like everybody else.
So I read your tweet this weekend is steering people away from sources of journalism toward official statements, which you label as news, which I won't fight you on that term. They're official position statements. I see that as dangerous.
So I would agree with you, and that's the impression that I left. I will say that tweet is we experiment. We do a lot of funny things. We do edgy things. We do experiments. And with 25,000 tweets, sometimes we get it wrong. And clearly reaction to this tweet was not what I had intended it to be. We're not trying to steer people away from the media. We believe that the media is a critical piece. A free and independent media is a critical piece of a free society, and based on some of the things you've written too, Kyle, I will tell you that we also understand in the police department that because of the impact we can have on people's lives, we deserve a special degree of scrutiny, and the media is oftentimes in the best position to do that.
I know the DPD spends a lot of time trying to build trust with the community, and when I saw that tweet, I thought, that is 180 degrees in the opposite direction. Because you think about societies where the state positions itself as the fastest, most accurate source of news, as you guys did, where the so-called newsmen have a pen in one hand and a gun in the other. Those people don't have trust. They just have power. They have raw power. You guys say you want trust.
Yes, I agree. And I hear what you're saying, which is why I believe that that's not the best tweet we've ever had. We certainly won't write that again. But the intent was not as the message was received, and so I apologize for that.
That is just a portion of our full unedited discussion, which you can find on the next YouTube channel. There we discuss whether DPD, being in the business of news, has a corrections policy. And we talk about my perception that the department's become more antagonistic toward the public and the press over the last decade. The 20th Judicial District Attorney's Office, Boulder County, is going to handle the possible prosecution of Republican Representative Lori Sain. She's the state rep who brought a loaded gun to a DIA checkpoint last week. Denver's District Attorney, Beth McCann, was a co-sponsor on some legislation in the Assembly with Sain, so she's going to stand aside and let the Boulder DA decide if Sain will face a felony charge. There has been a lot of national attention on errors made by journalists, and that is fine. Journalist who doesn't own up and explain an error is not worth your trust. So I offer up this anatomy of an error so that you can see how we recently got something wrong and how we tried to set it right.
We start the hour with breaking news. A Colorado state representative has been arrested.
As news of a state representative's arrest at the airport broke, our next team was looking to add context. Gun law at the airport is a gray area, but the error I made was black and white. I misread the law online. CRS 33-6-125, guns and vehicles. I missed the section between the commas. A charge that typically involves someone bringing a loaded weapon into a secure area, like a TSA checkpoint, and not announcing it to officers. You can't have a round chambered in a long gun in a vehicle. You can in a handgun. I failed to distinguish between the two. Not because I'm fake news or I hate guns or I'm un-American. I made a mistake. It wasn't about being first. I mean, this was context, not exclusive information. Was I rushing? Well, sure, I rush every day. I mean, that's life. That's not an excuse to let an error go uncorrected. Viewers caught it and emailed. It's never been easier to instantly notify journalists of an error. That's a good thing. I pulled up the Colorado revised statutes from my computer on set, confirmed that the viewers were right, I was wrong, leading to this correction by the end of the program. Thanks to Brent and Jess and Luke and Kirk, who all caught a mistake that I made when talking about Colorado gun laws. We don't like to make corrections because we don't like to make mistakes. But if you see a news outlet or a person who never corrects their own errors, trust me, it's not because they don't make them. After all, as they say, to err is human. To correct is our bottom line. The Broncos are in a familiar position. We've all had a friend in a toxic relationship. Now that you have a super flammable tree inside your house, great time to check out whether your fire extinguisher still works and how to dispose of it if it doesn't. And Snoga is now a thing, because Colorado. Next. Our next question comes from a viewer named Amanda. Prepping for holiday festivities. Notice my fire extinguisher has expired. Is there somewhere to recycle these in town? Do I take it to my local fire station? Do not take your old fire extinguisher to a fire station, Amanda, unless you just need an excuse to meet firefighters. You're right, though, not to chuck it in the trash, because that could be an explosive surprise for a sanitation worker. Best advice here, call your city or county, ask for their hazardous waste drop-off sites, and there are some fire extinguishers that can be refilled and reused. If yours is expired, you might want to Google that and see if that would be a cheaper option for you. The most Colorado thing we saw today is yoga on ice. Snow and yoga combined. Of course they are in Colorado, right? Every Saturday morning through February 10th, 8 to 8:45 in the morning at the downtown Denver ice rink at Skyline Park. Bring the yoga mat and hats and gloves and a towel because you don't want to be sliding around the ice now. Snowga in Denver is free. First come, first served.
Hi there, I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. You probably didn't even notice a weak cool front moved through today. Why didn't you notice? Well, temperatures weren't all that cool. Low 60s yesterday, today almost 60, but the high this time of year should be closer to 43. Where's the snow? Not here. That big blocking ridge of high pressure creating extreme fire conditions across California and producing that gusty northwesterly downsloping flow, which means storm systems crossing Colorado lose their moisture. A lot of wind and sometimes a little bit of cloud cover, but not much moisture. Now the pattern shifts at the end of the week. There's colder air coming and maybe, just maybe, a few snowflakes by Saturday morning. Not tonight. Fair skies and 27 degrees. That's where we start off tomorrow morning, so definitely a light jacket at the bus stop for the kids. Mid-60s in the afternoon, a trend that continues through Wednesday. It'll be colder but dry on Thursday. Really warm and windy on Friday, close to 70 ahead of that cool down I mentioned. Mid-40s Saturday and Sunday. I don't know, could be wishful thinking, but there might be some snow coming in. In the meantime, it's a great time of year to get out and enjoy the scenery.
So I got to thinking after the Broncos are celebrating their big win over the weekend, the Broncos are every friend you have ever had who is in a toxic relationship. The Broncos are in a toxic relationship with the status quo. The status quo has mistreated them for years, and they were about to leave the status quo, but then the status quo took them out to a nice fancy dinner. They made up. They went back to status quo's place. Everybody wakes up the next morning feeling great, but you're still in that toxic relationship with the status quo. So let's bring in Broncos insider Mike Kliss to ask, are the Broncos going to allow a few wins to convince them not to break up with the status quo in the offseason?
I think roster-wise, quarterback-wise, it's still going to be a breakup and a change, a new romance somewhere else. With the coaching staff, maybe with John Elway, Joe Ellis, and Vance Joseph, there's a real chance that they rekindle their romance and it buds from here. They still got to fix some holes throughout the roster, but a win, this toxic relationship, perhaps it will be repaired, not that they would call it toxic relationship, Kyle.
Broncos
with Vance Joseph and many coaches.
Oh, put your stuff in a box, Broncos. You got to move out. We'll call you a cab. It'll be fine. Mike Kliss, many thanks. When it comes to business, I don't know Jack, but I do know Jack, and he has knowledge to spare.
They'll understand financial literacy, business, being an entrepreneur themselves.
It's a sign that Denver is officially out of control. How is this acceptable, people? And hey, I can talk again. Thanks for all the home remedies. I'm not sure which worked, but I can tell you which was the weirdest. Next. All right, so here's the deal. I'm not going to be able to take months of talking about the Broncos. Cannot do it. So, hey, what's Charlie Blackmon doing in the offseason? He's a happy guy, and he's everywhere. We found him in Atlanta, confused about the weather, on Insta. Thanks for the snow, Atlanta. Good thing we're prepared. This rain seems cold and fluffy. Hashtag fast and furious. See? Happy Charlie Blackmon. Way better than months of sad Broncos. Our ongoing search for the smartest kid in Colorado leads us to Jack Bunno, a 12-year-old who's already a successful entrepreneur. Today's his birthday.
Experiencing the season at any local mall can be a day's work for some shoppers.
Yeah, I got dog treats, wine charms, spiced honey.
For young entrepreneur Jack Bunno,
it's my birthday. Yep, my 12th birthday.
Creating experiences today started a few years back.
I wanted the Lego Star Wars Death Star when I was 8 years old. I asked my dad if I could get it. He said I could, and I would have to pay for it.
So he decided to start a real business by selling lemonade and iced tea at a local farmer's market.
I had such a great experience. I learned so much that I wanted other kids to experience this, because these experiences benefit you your whole life.
That's why he created Jack Stands and Marketplaces, a business that gives young entrepreneurs a chance to learn about finances while having a little fun.
I like talking to people, having like a face-to-face conversation, and actually like meeting people that would buy our products.
By reaching out to other people and talking to strangers, they've come out of their shell if they're a little shy.
These young people track sales and make change, and at the end of their shift, figure out their profits and losses.
Entrepreneurship just kind of throws lots of different life skills at you at one time. It's an adult world, it really is, and so being able to understand how to have mature conversations and being able to interact with business people the way they're used to interacting.
Empowering other young entrepreneurs through a day's work.
Sebastian designs his own socks.
And giving great experiences, one he hopes they'll never forget.
A measure of success for me is when any kid walks away from the stand learning more than they did before.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
Jack will be set up at the Park Meadows Mall until the end of the month. Just in case, Jack is not the smartest kid in Colorado, we will continue our search. You can help. If you know of a young person doing something extraordinary in our community, email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Tell you what else got our attention. A sign that Denver is just out of control expensive. How do we know it this time? Well, it is a $135 Christmas tree, a 6-foot living Christmas tree. Bring it home, it's gonna die. $135. I mean, they will deliver it and set it up, but I mean, dragging it across town's half the fun of getting a Christmas tree. Apparently, this was originally $150 and they knocked it down $15 to make you think it's on sale. As my father-in-law Bob likes to say, it's not what is off, it's what is on that will get you. If you see a sign that makes you do a double take, email next@9news.com. So it was just about this time last year that we were answering a next question that seems worth revisiting. Ads for the Chinese stage show Shen Yun are airing once again on this station and others. And next viewer was curious if these expensive ads and this fancy production are financed by the Chinese government. Actually, quite the opposite. Shen Yun is an anti-communist show that's put on by the Falun Gong religious order. That's the group that the communist Chinese government calls a cult. Hey, appreciate the fact that I can now speak, perhaps thanks to one of your home remedies, or maybe not. Tried some really weird stuff. I think I would feel better if I talked about it. Next. My thanks to the hundreds of you who suggested home remedies when my voice vanished for most of last week. Which one of them worked? I have no idea. I did not do them one by one. This is not a clinical trial, folks. I just wanted to get talking again. So I did the total vocal rest. I did every kind of tea imaginable, the local honey. I did the oil of oregano. Goodness, that burns. Who recommended that to me? I did not do the Vicks Vapo Rub on my feet under socks at night. A lot of you recommended it. Kim Christensen swore by it. Listen, I am married and I intend to stay that way. I did not do the Vicks Vapo Rub. Also didn't do the 6-pack of Bud Light. Whoever recommended that was probably just trolling me. Karen Smith writes tonight, what's on your cup? Usually I think, well, she means what's in your cup, and it's none of your business, Karen. What's on my cup? Hashtag HeyNext. That's how you get in touch with us around here. It's a good reminder. See you next time.